This is my 1999 Kenmore Whispertone Canister Vacuum Cleaner. I purchased this at a Goodwill outlet. I bought this originally to resell, but after taking it apart and seeing that it's in incredible working order and generally in excellent physical shape, I decided to hold on to it for a little while. This type of machine does have some sentimental value to me because my grandmother back in the day did have a very similar machine. It was a Kenmore Whispertone 300. The only major differences between this machine and that one is that that one was blue and gold. This one is green and silver. That one also had a power head that had replaceable brush strips and beater bars. This one does not. Other than that, they're pretty much identical. This is the very last of the line of the rectangular shaped Kenmore Whispertone canisters. By this time, the teardrop shaped progressives were already out. They came out in late '97. This one was made in '99. And I want to say it was probably around 2000 that they stopped making these altogether for Kenmore. The canister portion was produced by Panasonic, and the power nozzle was made by Centec. Panasonic's no longer selling vacuums in the United States. However, there is a company that bought the design from Panasonic, and now they are selling, technically they're still selling Kenmore canisters, but you mainly will only see them online and in vacuum stores. I'm still partial to this particular design. I still feel like this was really kind of almost the golden age for Kenmore canisters, at least for the more modern style. I can't speak of the earlier ones from like the 50s and the 60s, only because I've never used them. I'm sure that those are much better, but I'm only speaking in modern, from a modern perspective. This is not what I would consider the top of the line Kenmore for the time. Like I said, the progressive line was already out, and that was the top of the line machine. This was more the middle of the line. However, like I said, I picked this up with the intention of selling it. I think I'm going to keep it just because I took the hood off the back of the motor housing, and I was really quite surprised at the lack of dust that had gotten into the housing. Usually these machines are filthy when you take them apart, mainly because the collar doesn't have a really good gasket. Well, the bag itself doesn't have a gasket. That's the first problem. And the one that's integrated into like the little cuffling that you put the bag into does not create a very tight seal. So with that in mind, that was the main issue with these. It's not a sealed system, so by modern standards, it's not good for filtration. There is no HEPA filter, although it really wouldn't matter anyway because everything else around it isn't really that well sealed. It's not as bad if you use the HEPA bags. I'm going to be getting a new set of bags soon that do have a gasket around the bag collar, so that should improve filtration a little bit. This vacuum was, from what I can tell, pretty much always used with the higher yellow grade multi-filtration paper bags, which are a little bit better at filtering, so that is a good sign. They also improved the filtration a little bit by adding a second cloth pre-motor filter behind the foam one. That was another improvement in filtration that they made when they were designing these machines, so it does filter a little bit better than the earlier models do. Still not by modern standards good, but good enough for the time that this was made, which was 1999. You can see it does have some scratches on it. There's a few here and there on the canister that, unfortunately, the power head does have a few scratches that are pretty noticeable. But after polishing it with some green polish, the furniture polish, this green is really shining, so it does look quite nice. It's harder to find these now that have all of the attachments, and this one does. And this is one of the things that really made Kenmore canisters really one of the best, cheaper canisters to buy, because you always got your full set of attachments, with the exception of the mini power head, which not all of the models came with anyway, stored right on the machine. You had all these are what I would consider full-size tools, a real horsehair dusting brush, which by this time, a lot of Kenmore's, not even just Kenmore's, but a lot of vacuum cleaners were kind of going away from the horsehair because they were more expensive to make. Horsehair generally is better for dusting just because some of the cheaper synthetic materials actually can scratch your surfaces. But all in all, this is a really good machine. Again, by modern standards, a little bit outdated, but mainly just because of the filtration. Cleaning ability is still quite good, even by modern standards. Now, this is one of the later Kenmore power nozzles of this style. You can see there's no replaceable brush strips and there's no beater bars. Again, mainly on the later model ones, you saw that. They did continue to make that power nozzle for Kenmore canisters for about another 10 years after this machine was discontinued. And then as of right now, they're not making this power nozzle for Kenmore canisters, although the Titan machines, which is what basically the evolution of Kenmore's is at now, they have gone back to this basic style of power nozzle because the wheel design on the metal axle is so much better on this machine, in particular compared to some of the earlier model of the later model Kenmore canisters. I know that doesn't really make sense, but essentially the power nozzle that came after this was not as good because the wheels on the side would wear off a lot, and basically because it was plastic on plastic. This is plastic on metal. I don't even know why they ever swayed away from that design, because this was really tried and true. This hose doesn't even have any stress on it, which is also really good because they almost always do at this age. Has this dual stage Amtech motor, not the most powerful in the world. I mean, it's not going to suck paint off the wall, but it's still quite powerful, and certainly powerful enough. I mean, like, how much power do you really need? Sometimes having just good enough suction is enough. And I mean, the machine does move a lot of air. I mean, like I said, the motor in this vacuum is huge. The motor in this vacuum is about twice the size of a motor that you would find in a modern day Shark. Probably about 5 or 6, maybe even 10 times the size of a motor that you'd find in a cordless Shark or cordless Dyson. So I probably will just make a follow-up video, since this video is getting rather lengthy, of the machine in use. But other than that, yeah, this vacuum does have some sentimental value to me, as I might have mentioned before, because my grandmother had one. It was a Whispertone 300. Yeah, I really couldn't pass this one up because you just don't see machines like this in good shape anymore. The people who bought these generally abused them. You know, they were one of the cheaper canisters that you could buy, at Sears. At this point, you could still only buy Kenmore canisters at Sears. Now you can buy them, practically anywhere, online at least. But at this point, Kenmore was still exclusive to Sears. And I really think it was at that point when Kenmore's were available at places other than Sears where they kind of just lost a little bit of their uniqueness and their reputation. And this particular design was sold for a decent amount of time. This began as a Whirlpool designed machine, and they came out around 1983. My mom actually had one of those models of Kenmore's, which was given to her by my grandmother around 1985. And around 1988, 1989, somewhere around there, from what I believe, Whirlpool sold their canister line to Panasonic, and these machines thus began being produced by Panasonic. So this is a Panasonic produced vacuum cleaner. Where it was made, I'm not sure. At this point, Panasonic was still making vacuums in the United States, but they were also making them in Mexico. So I think it's a toss-up where this machine was made. It would say either Mexico or the United States. Pretty much all of the ones of this nature I've seen were made in the United States, but again, like I said, I'm not quite sure. Most of the ones I've seen that were made in the US said they were made in the US on it, and I don't think this one does, so that I'm not completely sure about. And then the power nozzle, like I said, is a Suntech design. They use that basic design for a long time. And now they've gone back to it because they found that these power nozzles generally do last a lot longer than the models that replaced it. It's unfortunate almost that these vacuums are sealed so poorly, because if they were sealed better, this would still be a fantastic vacuum cleaner. And in all honesty, in reality, in most ways, it still is a fantastic vacuum cleaner if you don't have severe allergies. I still have yet to get the new bags for this, so once I get the bags that have a better seal on them, perhaps then it might be a better option. But I don't plan on using this machine a whole lot, only because you just don't see them in this good a shape anymore. But yeah, anyway, it's a good machine. Kenmore's, in my opinion, were always a very good value. I think that's really what made them stand out from a lot of other machines. They were just easier to use. They were one of the first to really streamline the direct connect setup. Even back in the 60s, nobody else had really done it before Sears did it with the Kenmore canisters. So very happy with the machine. I'll make a follow-up video soon with a little demonstration.